She cries when it rains. That's new. She used to love it. Would crack the window just to hear the patter on the glass. Used to say thunderstorms made her feel safe. But last week, when the rain hit the roof, she started shaking. Silent, like someone had just told her a war was starting. I watched her from the kitchen. She stood in the hallway barefoot, staring at nothing, arms clenched tight to her chest like she was holding herself together. I asked her what was wrong. She didn't hear me. I said it again. That's when she blinked, like waking up, and whispered, "Don't touch me. I can't stand you right now." No anger. No shouting. Just that. Cold. Hollow. And she walked upstairs like I hadn't said a word. Here's the thing. She wasn't always like this. But I'm not going to bore you with the whole, "we used to be so in love" speech. That's not what this is. This is a story about what happens after the silence. After the weirdness sets in like mold in the corners of your house. After your wife starts humming songs she never used to know. After she starts locking the bathroom door even when she's just brushing her teeth. This is the story of how I figured it out. Piece by piece. Not through texts or lipstick or missed calls. But through the way she cried when it rained. And when I finally confronted her, she didn't deny it. She laughed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the night the bathtub overflowed for no reason, and why that was the first sign. The leak started on a Thursday. I came home from work to the sound of water. Not a drip, not a trickle, but a full-blown stream. It was coming from upstairs, and for one horrifying second, I thought she might have left the faucet on and flooded the place. I bolted up the staircase, heart thumping like it was trying to warn me. The bathroom door was closed. Locked. I knocked. No answer. I called her name. Still nothing. And then I heard it. A noise that didn't make sense. Laughter. Soft. Uneven. Like someone trying to sound normal while being very much not okay. I knocked again, harder. "Mel." A pause. Then, "I'm fine. Don't come in." She sounded breathless. Not scared. Just wrong. I backed away, even though every cell in my body was screaming to kick the door open. I waited in the hallway like an idiot for 20 minutes, trying not to spiral. Eventually, the door creaked open just a few inches. She didn't step out. Didn't explain. She just said, "The tub overflowed." I cleaned it up. "Can you grab towels?" I peeked in when she moved away. The bathroom was spotless. No water. No mess. Just steam lingering in the air like something had happened and been erased too quickly. But here's the part that stuck with me. There was a bracelet on the sink. Not hers. It was thin, silver, slightly bent, like someone had pulled it off in a hurry. And it had an engraving inside. 3 little initials, L, M, K. I stared at it, not knowing what to say. Mel didn't wear jewelry with initials. She didn't even know anyone with those initials. At least, not that I knew of. When I asked her about it, she said, "I found it outside weeks ago. Meant to throw it out." Then she took it, slid it into the medicine cabinet like it was no big deal. But it was a big deal. Because the bracelet wasn't dusty. It wasn't weather-worn. It had a perfect, oily thumbprint on the inside, like someone had just taken it off. And the worst part? When I checked that cabinet later that night, it was gone. That's when I started a note in my phone. I titled it, "Weird Things Mel Does Now." It was meant to be a joke at first, a way to deal with the slow, creepy unraveling of my marriage. But by the end of the week, I had 13 bullet points. Smiles at her phone and hides the screen. Sings lyrics to songs I've never heard, and she won't say where they're from. Stands in the backyard barefoot at night, staring at the tree line like she's waiting for something. Bathroom door locked. Every single time. Tells me she's tired, then stays up hours after I've gone to bed. Refuses to let me do laundry. Says I fold things wrong. Keeps buying new soap but never opens it. The old soap disappears and I never see it in the trash. I know how that sounds. I know I sound like I'm unraveling. But something's off. Deeply off. And I don't know if it's her or me. But the final straw that week, the one that made me stop pretending this was just stress or hormones or whatever lie I was feeding myself, was the voicemail. Not one I got. One I heard from the shower speaker. It happened 2 days after the bracelet. Mel had gone to the store, or so she said, and I was home alone, nursing a headache and pretending not to be spiraling. I wanted to distract myself, so I figured I'd clean the bathroom. Maybe that sounds pathetic, but there's something calming about wiping down mirrors when your life feels like it's cracking behind them. I'd just started clearing the sink when I heard it, the unmistakable click of our shower speaker powering on. That thing only turns on if you press and hold the power button for a few seconds. It doesn't just randomly activate. And yet, there it was. The little beep. The soft crackle of Bluetooth connecting. Then a voice. A man's voice. Not live, recorded. At first, I froze. I thought maybe it was a podcast queued up from Mel's phone. But no, this voice wasn't giving life hacks or talking true crime. It was intimate, low, close to the mic, like the guy was whispering into her ear. He said, "I couldn't stop thinking about you in the hotel last night. That thing you did with your hands. Jesus. If he only knew." Then a pause. A soft laugh. That same laugh I heard through the bathroom door days earlier. And then, before I could catch my breath, the voice added, "Delete this." That was it. My stomach hit the floor. I was shaking so bad I nearly dropped the toothbrush cup I was holding. I rushed to the speaker, powered it off manually, and just stood there in the middle of the tile floor trying to convince myself that I'd imagined it. That it was a movie, an audio book, anything else. But it wasn't. And I knew exactly what had just happened. She had connected her phone to the speaker earlier. Maybe on accident. Maybe she forgot it was paired. And it auto-played the last thing she'd listened to, that voicemail. From him. Someone who had seen her in a hotel. Someone who laughed like it was all a joke. Someone who thought I was clueless. I felt like someone had taken a crowbar to the back of my head. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or smash the damn speaker into pieces. But I didn't do anything. I didn't even call her. I just sat on the closed toilet lid for an hour and stared at the floor tiles like they were going to give me answers. When she came home, she acted completely normal. Said the grocery store was crowded. Asked if I wanted spaghetti for dinner. Kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. And I kissed her back. That's what killed me. I kissed her back, smiled like a fool, and said, "Spaghetti sounds great." Because I wasn't ready to fight. Not yet. I needed more. I needed proof. Evidence. Something undeniable that I could shove in her face and say, "This is what you did to me." So, that night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. while she slept. And I did something I swore I'd never do. I backed up her phone. She had an old MacBook in the closet she hadn't used in ages. I plugged her iPhone into it. Entered the passcode she thought I didn't know. Clicked backup. It took 2 hours. And when it finished, I opened messages. What I saw in that chat thread made my skin go cold. Not because of what he wrote, but because of what she did. I wish I could tell you I found something obvious. Some smoking gun. A photo of them in bed. A text that said, "Can't wait to ruin my husband's life." But it wasn't like that. What I found was worse. Subtle. Calculated. The kind of quiet evil that makes you second-guess your sanity. The kind that makes you feel small. The first red flag was his contact name. It wasn't a name at all. It was saved as "prohibited, do not answer prohibited." Classic. Like they were in on some inside joke that I wasn't smart enough to catch. The first message was from her. Sent weeks ago. It simply read, "Rooms booked." Same name, same card. Back doors open after 9. That was the moment I stopped breathing properly. Because it sounded like something they'd done before. Something rehearsed. That kind of shorthand doesn't come from a one-time mistake. That's muscle memory. I scrolled. Their entire thread was filled with coded language, like they were spies in some low-stakes thriller. But I wasn't amused. My wife, the woman who once cried watching an insurance commercial because it had a dog in it, was texting a man things like, "He's still clueless. He thinks I'm stressed about work, lol." She was talking about me. Laughing about me. There was one message in particular that stuck out. From her, sent at 11:42 p.m. 3 nights before the shower speaker incident. It read, "It's honestly pathetic. He asks if I'm okay like 5 times a day. I almost feel bad. Almost. Almost." She followed it up with a photo. Not of anything explicit, thank God. Just her legs on hotel sheets, a wine glass in her hand, and a second glass placed just out of frame. But I knew what that meant. I knew how carefully it had been taken. I could see the subtle details, the deliberate composition. She wanted him to remember that night. She wanted him to feel like it was theirs. I looked at the timestamp again. It was the same night she told me she was going to her sister's to clear her head. I remember asking her if she wanted me to drive her. She said no. She wanted to go alone. Apparently, she wasn't. There were other messages too, ones that didn't just imply betrayal, but something more deliberate. Cold. He asked her things like, "You sure he doesn't suspect? And did you move the thing from the drawer?" And this one shook me. "When are you going to be done pretending?" Pretending. Pretending to love me? Pretending our life was still real? I sat there, staring at the screen in the dark, the only light coming from that sickening white and blue glow. I wanted to throw the laptop, smash it, but I didn't. I closed the lid slowly, like the damage could be contained if I just didn't look at it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from anger, not yet, but from a strange, unreal stillness that had taken over me. You know the feeling right before a crash? When everything seems too quiet. That was me, sitting on the bedroom floor while she snored upstairs, completely unaware that the ground beneath her had just cracked. But here's the thing that still haunts me. That night, I went back upstairs. I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching her sleep. And in that moment, I realized something far worse than betrayal. She wasn't pretending anymore. She had already left. Emotionally, mentally, maybe even spiritually, she was gone. She'd just left the lights on so I wouldn't notice. And suddenly, all those little things, the humming in the hallway, the bracelet in the bathroom, the locked doors, the crying when it rained, they weren't random. They were part of something. Something deliberate. And I had no idea how deep it went. There's this drawer in our bedroom that Mel always called her space. Top drawer, right side of the dresser, with a wobbly silver handle and a little sticky note on the inside that once said, in her handwriting, "This means boundaries," smiley face. I used to think it was cute, like her version of a do not disturb sign in a hotel. A small reminder that we were two people who respected each other's privacy. But now, after reading those messages, after the voicemail, the bracelet, the lies, all I could think was, what the hell is in that drawer? It was around midnight when I finally went for it. The house was quiet. Mel was in the shower, humming something tuneless, something not hers. The kind of sound that doesn't come from memory but from repetition, like she'd heard someone else hum it first. I opened the drawer slowly, bracing for something dramatic. A letter, a burner phone, some artifact of guilt. But instead, it was organized. Neatly. Almost eerily so. The drawer was lined with a velvet jewelry pad, and sitting atop it all were three things: a small notebook, a Polaroid photo, and an envelope sealed with black wax. My hands hovered over them like I was disarming a bomb. I opened the notebook first. It wasn't a diary exactly, more like scattered thoughts. Short entries, none longer than a few lines. They weren't addressed to anyone, just observations. But they chill me to my core. He keeps looking at me like he's still in there. It's harder to fake it now. I think he suspects. I smiled too hard at dinner. He said he loved me today. I didn't say it back. He didn't notice. The handwriting was hers. Curvy, a little rushed, but familiar. And the tone, it was clinical, detached, like I was a case study. A petri dish under her microscope. Then came the photo. It was taken in daylight, maybe during early spring. Mel was sitting on a park bench I didn't recognize, wearing a coat I'd never seen before, her legs crossed just slightly inward the way she always did when she was nervous. But she wasn't alone. A man sat beside her. Not close, not touching, but angled toward her just enough to suggest intimacy. I couldn't see his face. It was slightly out of frame, but his hand rested on the edge of the bench where hers also sat, almost meeting. Not quite, but enough to send my heart into my throat. What gutted me most wasn't the photo itself. It was how posed it looked. Like they'd taken it deliberately. Like it was a memory worth keeping. Finally, the envelope. The wax was old school. Black, thick, with a faint impression of a tree or roots. I couldn't tell. I almost didn't open it. Something in me felt like it wasn't meant for me. But I was long past that line. Boundaries were broken. Lines erased. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper with just 6 words, printed in a clean serif font. Tell him only when it's done. That was it. No names. No signatures. Just that. When I tell you my knees almost gave out, I'm not exaggerating. I sat down on the edge of the bed holding that paper, just holding it, like it would make more sense if I stared long enough. Tell him what? When what is done? Was this about the affair? About leaving me? Or something else? I didn't hear her step into the room until she cleared her throat. There she was. Hair damp. Towel around her shoulders. Her face was unreadable. Not surprised, not angry, just tired. Her eyes dropped to the paper in my hand, then to the photo on the dresser. She didn't scream. She didn't try to grab it back. She just stood there and said calmly, "So I guess now you know." But the way she said it, it wasn't guilty. It was relieved, like she'd been waiting for this moment. And in that moment, I realized something even worse than betrayal. Whatever was happening, Whatever this was, I was already too late. I wish I could say I exploded, that I yelled, demanded answers, broke something, did something. But when Mel said, "So I guess now you know," all I could do was stare at her. My hands were still clutching that paper like it had weight, like those 6 words were made of iron. She stood there in the doorway in her robe, her hair damp and curling at the ends. Her face? Neutral. Not smug, not sad. Just calm. As if she'd just finished the dishes and was ready to talk taxes. "What does it mean?" I finally asked. My voice cracked. I sounded smaller than I expected. "Tell him when it's done." "What is it?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped into the room and sat down across from me on the edge of the bed like she was settling in for a casual catch-up. Her fingers smoothed the robe over her knees. She looked at me for a long moment, and then said, so gently it made my skin crawl, "I didn't want you to find it like this. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting." "For what?" She tilted her head. "For the noise to stop." That made no sense. My jaw clenched. "What noise?" She gave me a look I still don't fully understand. The kind you might give a child who asked where the sun goes at night. Not condescending, just sad. Everything. The pretending. The guilt. The way I keep waking up and feeling like I'm drowning before the day even starts. The lies. Your eyes when you look at me like I'm still the same. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I snapped. It came out harsher than I meant, but I didn't take it back. She didn't flinch. "Exactly." I asked her who the man was. The one from the photo. The one she'd been messaging. The one in the voicemail. I expected her to deny it. To panic. But instead, she shrugged, like she was handing me a grocery list. "His name's Lee. I met him 8 months ago. At a bookstore, of all places. He recommended a poetry collection I already owned. I told him so. We laughed. That's how it started." The casualness of it shattered something in me. Not the betrayal. I'd already seen that coming. It was the normalcy. The idea that while I was out here trying to hold our life together, she was falling for someone in the poetry aisle. And I never stood a chance. "You were going to leave me?" I asked. "Is that what this was? Is that what the letter meant?" She hesitated. For the first time, she looked unsure. "No, not at first. I didn't know what I was doing at first. It was just noise. A distraction." She looked down at her hands then, picked at a thread on her robe. "But it stopped being about you, or him. It became about me. About what I wanted. About the version of myself I kept having to suppress around you." "Suppress?" I laughed, but it came out dry and bitter. "You mean the version of you that lies? That cheats? That gaslights me into thinking I'm the one going crazy?" "No," she said quietly. "The version of me that stopped shrinking to keep you comfortable." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know whether to be angry or ashamed. Maybe both. Was she rewriting history now? Painting me as the villain to justify what she'd done? "But that letter," I said. "That line, 'Tell him only when it's done.' That's not about emotions, Mel. That sounds like a plan. Like someone was instructing you." She looked up, and that was the first time her mask cracked. Her face didn't twist in fear, or guilt, or even sadness. It twisted in something far worse. Confusion. "What letter?" she asked. My blood turned to ice. I held it up. "This. The one in the wax envelope. With the tree seal." She stared at it like she'd never seen it before. Then she whispered, "I didn't write that. I've never seen it in my life." I stood up. "You're lying." She stood too. "No. I swear to God, that's not mine." "Then who put it in your drawer?" "I don't know. I didn't." She stopped herself. Her face went pale. She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. Then her eyes landed on the dresser, and she whispered something that made the air in the room feel thinner. I think he's been here." For a long time, neither of us moved. Mel was staring at the dresser like it had betrayed her. Her arms had gone stiff at her sides, fingers twitching slightly like she didn't know what to do with them. I watched her, waiting for the punchline. For the moment she'd laugh and say she was messing with me. That the letter was hers after all. That I was overreacting. But the fear in her eyes? That was real. And it was unfamiliar. She sat down on the edge of the bed, slower this time, like she didn't trust the ground beneath her. "There's something I haven't told you," she said finally, voice low. "And I swear it's not what you think." I didn't speak. I didn't want to interrupt whatever she was building up to. My body was rigid. It felt like if I moved too quickly, the whole moment might snap in half. "Lee isn't who I thought he was," she said. "When I first met him, he was kind. thoughtful. He remembered small things about me that even you never noticed. He didn't flirt, he didn't push. But over time, it changed. I still didn't speak. My brain was buzzing too loudly. He became possessive. Not in the obvious way. Not jealousy. It was subtle. Questions that sounded like concern. Comments about my routines. And then things started showing up. Notes. Gifts. Books he'd mentioned that I hadn't bought. You brought those home, I said flatly. I saw some of them. She shook her head. No, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Some of them. I didn't. I came home one day, and there was a paperback on the kitchen table. Poems from Under the Elm. That was the book he recommended the day we met. I never bought it. I never mentioned it again. But there it was, sitting on the table, open to a dog-eared page. And I just assumed you found it online or something. I never asked. I've never even heard of that book, I said. Her face crumpled a little, and for a second I saw the Mel I used to know. The one who danced while folding laundry and talked to the cat like it was a person. The one who used to look at me like I was enough. I think he's been in the house, she whispered. That sentence didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slow, like cold water under a door. It didn't make sense, and yet, it explained everything. The missing soap. The unlocked back door I kept chalking up to forgetfulness. The faint smell of cigarettes in the garage, even though neither of us smoked. The worst part? I'd felt it. That invisible pressure. That sense that someone had just left a room right before I entered it. But I ignored it. Because what's the alternative? You don't want to believe your home isn't yours anymore. I walked to the dresser and opened the other drawers. One by one. Slowly. And that's when I saw it. In the bottom drawer, beneath a pile of winter scarves Mel hadn't touched in over a year, was a crumpled receipt. Faded, but readable. It was for a hardware store across town. Dated just 3 weeks ago. On it, gloves, duct tape, electrical wire, a padlock. I held it up. You buy this? Mel took one look and immediately shook her head. No, I've never even been to that store. I turned the receipt over. Written in pen, at the top corner, was a number. A phone number. Not hers. Not mine. I opened my phone and entered it into a search engine. No hits. No name. But it didn't matter. My hands were already slick with sweat. What is happening? I said, mostly to myself. Why would he come here? What does he want? Mel looked up at me then, and her voice was barely a whisper. He doesn't want me anymore. Then what? She swallowed. He wants you to know? That he's real. That he's close. I stared at the number for what felt like an hour. My thumb hovered over the call button like it weighed 100 pounds. Mel stood near the door, arms folded across her chest, not looking at me, not even really looking at the room. Just somewhere else. Like she was already preparing for something she couldn't stop. Finally, I hit dial. It rang once, twice, then silence. No voicemail, no disconnect. Just the sound of a line that had been picked up, but no one speaking. I held the phone to my ear and said, I know who you are. Nothing. I said it again, louder. I know about the hotel. The photos. The drawer. I know everything. Still nothing. But I could hear something. Breathing. Calm. Measured. Just there. I was about to hang up when a voice, low, flat, almost mechanical, whispered, You do now. Then the line went dead. I dropped the phone. Mel rushed forward, but I didn't flinch. I just stood there, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. I didn't know what to do. Call the police? Say what? That my wife's secret ex was breaking into our home and leaving receipts? That he left cryptic notes and maybe, possibly, was watching us from God knows where? I looked at Mel, and for the first time in weeks, I really saw her. Not the mask she'd been wearing. Not the guilt or the calm or the cruelty. Just her. Tired. Flawed. Scared. Human. And maybe that's what changed something in me. I didn't scream. I didn't ask her to leave. I didn't throw the phone. Instead, I just said, Do you want to fix this? She didn't speak. Not at first. Then she nodded, barely, like it hurt to move her head that much. So we did something no one ever does in these stories. We called the police. We filed a report. Showed them the messages, the receipt, the letter. They took it seriously, more seriously than I expected. Apparently, Lee had a history. Restraining orders. Online stalking. A pattern of emotional manipulation and isolation. We weren't the first. They changed our locks that day. Put a patrol car in our neighborhood for 2 weeks. Mel changed her number. Deleted every trace of him. And we started talking again, not like before. Not the surface level, "How was your day?" stuff. The real, uncomfortable, messy talking. The kind that leaves you raw but lighter. She admitted everything. She told me about how she felt like she was disappearing inside our life. Like somewhere along the line she became my wife and forgot who she was. Lee saw her, or pretended to. And that was enough, for a while. And I told her about how I always sensed something slipping away, but convinced myself it was normal. That routine meant stability. That silence meant peace. It wasn't easy. Some nights we barely spoke. Some nights we cried. But slowly, we came back. Not to who we were, but to something new. Something honest. Fragile, yes. But real. We donated the dresser. Painted the bedroom. Left the house for a weekend with no phones, no plans, just time. And you know what? Last week, it rained. Hard. Mel cracked the window open and stood barefoot in the hallway, listening to the storm. She wasn't crying. She was smiling.